Hello everyone. In today's lecture we shall continue with the kinetics of elimination. So in the last lecture we had considered some of the aspects of kinetics of elimination. Elimination is the sum total of the inactivation of a particular drug by metabolism and the excretion of a drug. Okay, so we have seen how exactly the elimination of a particular drug can be measured. Okay, that is, clearance is the parameter with the help of which we can measure the elimination of a particular drug from the body. Whether it may be metabolic inactivation or it may be the excretion, that is removal of your drug out of the body by various excretory organs. Okay. So under clearance we had seen that it's a very important parameter which will help us to understand the elimination, even how it changes with the change in the kinetics of the elimination. So that also we have seen. It is also known as creatinine clearance. Okay, and clearance along with the volume of distribution and bioavailability. So it will help us to select appropriate dose of a particular drug or dosage regimen or the dose rate with which it is supposed to be administered. Then we have considered the next parameter, that is the plasma T half-life. Okay, so we have seen how it can be calculated, how exactly it will help us in determining the stay of the drug in our body. That is, for how long it will remain in the body, or after how long that single particular dose can be cleared totally from the body. 4 to 5 T half-lives are required for complete removal of the drug from the body is what we have seen. Okay. After that we have considered the repeated drug administration. Like most of the treatments single dose may not be required. In very few situations like say normal or a mild headache, you may require only one tablet or something like that. But mostly when the doctors prescribe, usually you have to take more than one doses, maybe more than one dose per day also. Okay, so how that particular, what is that repeated drug concept, or how exactly you can select the repetition of that particular drug, what is steady state plasma concentration, then the plateau principle also we have considered. Okay, wherein the slowly the plasma concentration will go on increasing and ultimately absorption will balance with the elimination and it will fluctuate around say particular average plasma concentration, that is known as the steady state plasma concentration. Also we have seen the target level strategy. For certain situations you may aim at attaining a particular plasma concentration. Okay, so for that a loading dose is initially given and then maintenance dose may be later on administered. Okay, now moving on to the next concept, that is monitoring of plasma concentration of a particular drug. Okay, so as the name implies, plasma concentration, you are observing what is the plasma concentration. Okay, as we have seen in the earlier aspects, what is the importance of plasma concentration? So it's the plasma concentration that will determine whether your drug will show the action or no, whether it will show therapeutic effect or toxic effect. So that totally depends upon the plasma concentration. Okay, there are certain drugs which show therapeutic effect only when it reaches a particular plasma concentration. Okay, so plasma concentration plays a very important role. So you need to maintain your drug at a particular plasma concentration for it to show an optimum action. Okay, so this particular maintenance of steady state plasma concentration, because we are repeating a dose, right? We are not giving a single dose of a drug in many of the situations. So this is very important, steady state plasma concentration. And in turn we have seen that this steady state plasma concentration is dependent upon all of these three parameters, okay, which determine the kinetics of that particular drug. So bioavailability, volume of distribution and the clearance of that particular drug will determine. So all these kinetic parameters will determine what is the CPSS of that particular drug, or what is the steady state plasma concentration, for how long it will be maintained, how it will be altered. So everything will be dependent upon all of these parameters. So these parameters, as we have seen even earlier, that you cannot make a generalization of these parameters in every individual. So when you measure these parameters in one particular patient for one particular drug, the same level of parameters, the same measure of the parameters will not be seen in the other individuals. Like say bioavailability of a particular drug may alter, right? We have seen under the bioavailability also. It is not constant for every individual. It will not be, say supposing a particular drug, if you say that it has 80% of bioavailability, that is 80% of the drug reaches your systemic circulation, but it will not be exactly 80% in all the individuals. There may be some variation. So depending upon the detailed studies, a generalization, or in the average person, a general bioavailability of the drug is reported, or in an average individual the volume of distribution is reported. Of course there may be variation in the volume of distribution, even the clearance, that may also be variable from person to person. So because of all these variations in these parameters, obviously the CPSs also will not be the same. Okay, so the actual CPSs in the patient in whom you are administering the drug, it may be either 1/3 to 3 times that of the calculated CPSs, or the theoretical CPSs of that particular drug. It may not show the exact CPSs in a particular individual, or even if it is reported, it may not be the same in all the other individuals. Okay, so on the basis of this, plasma drug concentration measurement, okay, it is given in the form of an estimate of pharmacokinetic variables in the particular patient, okay, depending upon the magnitude of deviations, okay, it is reported in terms of an average patient. Okay, so you may have to do certain adjustments when you are prescribing the same drug. So you may not be able to measure the same pharmacokinetic variables in all the individuals. It may be, the values may be different. Every individual may show a different plasma concentration. So depending upon the status of that particular person, and depending upon the variations, you may have to adjust the dosage regimen as per the requirement of the patient. Okay, so in most of the cases generalized dosage regimen is prescribed, but sometimes in specialized cases you may have to alter the regimen if there is lot of variation which is being seen. Okay, now in case of drugs which are following the first order kinetics, okay, if you have to alter the dose rate, supposing we have seen how to calculate the dose rate, right? Now supposing if you select that particular dose rate, your drug is not showing optimum action, so you may have to alter the dose rate in that particular patient. So how you will change that particular dose rate to a new dose rate, that is the revised dose rate. It can be calculated by the formula previous dose rate, which was the original dose rate of that particular drug, okay, that is the frequency with which it is supposed to be administered, multiplied by the target CPSs. What is the actual CPSs which is required to produce the optimum action, divided by the measured CPSs in that particular individual. So this is how you can revise the dose rate as per the requirement of a particular patient. Okay, now moving on to the concept known as the therapeutic drug monitoring. Okay, that's what is the parameter which measures the measures the amount of drug in the patient's body, so that you can exactly keep a watch on what is happening to the plasma levels. Okay, so therapeutic drug monitoring, meaning you are observing the drugs therapeutics, okay, whether it is showing the action or no, what is happening. Okay, so how you can measure that? By monitoring the plasma concentrations. Okay, so this therapeutic drug monitoring, this involves the monitoring, that is observing of the plasma concentration, not only observing but maintenance of that drug plasma concentration at a particular level which is necessary to produce the therapeutic effect. Okay, so any drug, when it is administered, there are certain situations wherein this monitoring is required. You may have to observe what are the levels of your drug in the body. Okay, that kind of monitoring is required, and if it is fluctuating, if it is not in the appropriate range, that you may have to alter it. Okay, you may have to alter the dosage in such a way that it is maintained in a particular level. Okay, now let us see what are the situations in which this TDM, that is therapeutic drug monitoring, is useful. What is the situation in which you are supposed to monitor the drug? Yeah, that is, what is the plasma concentration of that drug, and if required we may have to alter it. Now first situation is where the drug is having low safety margin. Okay, meaning the drug, the therapeutic range may be very much narrow. Beyond that, the drug may start precipitating the toxic effects. If the plasma concentration crosses a particular limit, it may start precipitating the toxic effects. So such drugs which have low safety margin, like digoxin, anticonvulsants, lithium, theophylline. So these are the drugs wherein the monitoring may be required, and if required, alterations also may be done. Second situation, if the individual variations are too large, from one person to another person, if there is a lot of variation, there are certain drugs which they show a lot of variation, like say for example antidepressants or lithium. From person to person there may be lot of variations in the kinetics. So that's the reason why you may have to monitor the plasma concentration of such drugs more frequently, and if required you may have to adjust the dose. The next situation in which TDM is useful is drugs which are potentially toxic. Supposing if such type of drugs are used in the presence of renal failure, if the patient's kidneys are not functioning properly, and if you give toxic drugs, obviously we have seen that kidneys play a very important role in excretion of a particular drug. Urine is the major route of excretion for most of the drug. Now supposing if you are administering some drugs which are toxic in nature in patients who are already suffering from renal failure, that is kidneys are not functioning proper, then what will happen? Your drug may not get excreted out appropriately and will start accumulating in the body, and toxicity may be precipitated. Say for example aminoglycosides, antibiotics, vancomycin. So such drugs in presence of renal failure, if they are supposed to be administered, you may have to monitor the plasma concentrations. Next is in case of the poisoning. If toxicity, or if the person has consumed certain drugs with the intention to commit suicide or something like that, or if the poisoning of a particular drug has taken place, maybe accidental or something like that, so you may have to monitor the plasma levels to check whether the poison is removed out from the body or no. Then next situation is in case of failure of the response without any apparent reason. So without any valid reason, if the drug is not showing effectiveness, then you may have to monitor the plasma concentration. So for example in case of antimicrobials. Then next situation is to check the patient compliance. That is, patient compliance is whether the patient is taking the medication as per the regimen. Supposing if a doctor prescribes you one tablet which is supposed to be taken 3 times a day, morning, afternoon and at night. So to check whether the patient is following that regimen properly or not. Sometimes what happens, the patients skip the doses, right? So they may take the tablet in the morning, they may skip the afternoon dose and then they may take the same drug at the night. Or sometimes what the patients do is, if they miss one tablet, the next time they take it, they take 2 doses of the drug. So always it is not advisable in all the situation to take the double dose if you miss one of the doses of your drug. Okay, so whether the patient is compliant or no, whether that particular patient is following the proper regimen or no, so that situation can be checked. Especially this is more applicable in the psychologically ill patients. Okay, those who are mentally ill patients, sometimes in whom such kind of psychopharmacological agents are administered, like antipsychotics or maybe antidepressants or something like that. So what happens is, generally such type of patients do not take the medication. Okay, they try to skip the tablets. Okay, they may throw it out and they may tell you that they have consumed a tablet. So how you will come to know? Best is therapeutic drug monitoring. If you measure the concentration of the drug in your plasma, you will come to know whether that patient has taken the medication or not. Okay, so especially this is true in case of psychologically ill patients. Okay, now these are all the situations in which the monitoring is supposed to be done. It is important. You may have to do it. You need to do it in certain situations. But there are certain situations wherein this therapeutic drug monitoring is of no value. It is not at all required. You may not have to, every time withdraw the blood and check what is the level of your drug in the body or in the blood. Okay. Now, what are these situations? First one is where the drug whose response is easily measurable. Okay. Now, supposing take a case of this antihypertensive. Antihypertensive is a drug which is used to lower the blood pressure. Now, blood pressure can be easily measured, right? It can be easily measured with the help of sphygmomanometer. Okay. Now, when you are administering a drug which is lowering the BP, do you have to measure the plasma concentration each and every time? Instead of that, you can measure the BP, right? So, if the blood pressure was high, antihypertensives are given to lower the blood pressure. So, rather than monitoring the plasma concentration of your antihypertensive, you can monitor the BP of that patient, right? If your drug is effective, or if that patient has consumed the tablet, automatically the blood pressure will be lowered, right? Okay, so you need not go for the therapeutic drug monitoring. You have to just measure certain responses or certain parameters which are produced by that particular drug. Same is the case with diuretics, which are meant to increase the urine output. So if the urine output is increasing, obviously the monitoring of the therapeutic monitoring is not required, right? You can just see whether the urine output is increasing or not. Okay, or hypoglycemics, drugs which are used to reduce the blood glucose level. So what you can check, rather than going for the plasma levels of the hypoglycemics, you can go for the blood sugar levels, right? So if the blood sugar levels are in control, that indicates your hypoglycemic drugs are acting. Then general anesthetics. Okay, general anesthetics are the ones which produces the reversible loss of sensations, all the sensations, including consciousness. Okay, so if the patient is unconscious, you know that the general anesthetic is acting, right? If the patient does not respond to any kind of stimulus, that indicates that the general anesthetic is acting, right? You need not monitor the plasma levels of that particular drug. So these are the situations wherein the response is measured rather than the plasma levels of that particular drug. So there are several situations in this way. Then next situation in which the monitoring is not required is the drugs which are activated in the body. So the drugs which are given in the form of a prodrug, say for example levodopa, we have considered these under metabolism, right? Certain drugs are activated in the body. They are given in the inactive form, that is known as a prodrug, and after metabolism the drug gets converted into an active metabolite. Now since in this case levodopa is a prodrug, it does not have any therapeutic property. It's the dopamine which is generated in the CNS that is actually producing the therapeutic effect. So is it is it sensible or is it required to monitor the levodopa levels? How will it help? You do not know how much of it will go to your central nervous system and how much of it will get activated. What is the point in measuring the plasma concentration of the levodopa? It's of no use, right? So this is the another situation. And the next situation is a hit and run type of drug. Means here the effects of the drugs last for a prolonged period of time. Even after the drug is removed out of the body, still the action of the drug will be sustained. Okay. Say for example Rezapil or guanethidine, MAO inhibitors or omeprazole. So such kind of drugs which can inhibit the enzymes. Okay. Supposing if the enzyme is irreversibly inhibited. Okay. So this proton pump, it is inhibited, right, irreversibly. Then MAO inhibitors, this enzyme monoamine oxidase. So this enzyme, sorry, there is a mistake, MAO. So MAO inhibitors are the drugs which can inhibit the enzyme monoamine oxidase. So in such situation the enzyme will remain inhibited. Okay, so even if your drug is removed out of the body, still the action may be persisting. Next situation is drugs with irreversible action. Supposing if the drug produces some action which cannot be reversed. Okay, so in such situation also monitoring may not be useful. Okay, some action will be produced by that particular drug which is irreversible in nature. So there is no need for monitoring. Say for example organophosphate anticholinesterases. Cholinesterase enzyme is inhibited by such kind of drug. Then phenoxybenzamide. Okay, so these are the situations in which the therapeutic drug monitoring is of no value. It should not be done. Okay, so this is to do with the therapeutic drug monitoring. Then the next concept is prolongation of the drug action. Okay, so another concept which is dependent upon the kinetics of a particular drug, or where the kinetics of your drugs are altered for making the drug act for a longer period of time. Okay, that is, every particular drug when it is administered, it will act for a certain period of time. It has certain duration of action. Now there are certain situations you may have to increase the duration of action of that particular drug so that it should act for a longer period of time. So here what is done, there are some alterations which can be done by which the duration of the drug, duration of action of that particular drug can be prolonged. Okay. Now why you may have to prolong the drug action? Why would you want to do this? Prolong the action of a particular drug or make the drug acting for a longer period of time. Now, by prolonging the duration of action, first thing is the frequency of administration is reduced. So if your drug acts for a longer period of time, maybe instead of 2 tablets per day, you may require only 1 tablet per day. So isn't it more convenient to take a single tablet in a day rather than taking 2 or 3 tablets per day? So it is quite convenient for the patient, right? Secondly, it can improve the patient compliance. Okay, so there are less chances that patient will forget taking a single tablet per day rather than 3 tablets per day. If there are 3 tablets per day, there are more chances that the patient may forget to take one of the tablet, right? One of the dose. Or say for example in case of oral contraceptives, a monthly or a quarterly administration of a contraceptive, it is more convenient, right, and it will show more patient compliance rather than the one which is supposed to be taken daily. Okay, so patient compliance is also improved if you prolong the action of the drug, so frequency of administration is low. Next situation is fluctuations in the plasma concentration that can be avoided, as we have seen under the repeated drug administration. So before the elimination of the drug from the body, you administer the second dose, so that slowly the plasma concentration will increase and it will attain a steady state plasma concentration. But over there we have seen that there are fluctuations, right? Okay, so rather than repeating a drug more frequently, there may be more number of fluctuations in the plasma concentrations, so that is not ideal. Okay, so a better round the clock control of blood sugar may be seen in case of less number of doses, or if your drug acts for a longer period of time, a better control of sugar, blood sugar may be seen. Okay, so there may be avoidance of fluctuations wherein lower levels may not show therapeutic effectiveness, or maybe larger peaks, it may show the side effects. So all these situations may be ruled out, okay, when you make the drug act for a longer period of time. Then another advantage is that the drug effect, it could be maintained overnight. Okay, now you generally sleep for say 7 to 8 hours. Okay, how about if the drug acts for a short period of time? What will happen after say taking a medication at 9 p.m. at night? If you have to wake up at 3 p.m. and take another tablet, is it advisable? No, it is not advisable. It will not be convenient for any patient to wake up at night and take the medication, right? So, even when the drug acts for a longer period of time, it helps in maintaining the situation or the therapeutic effect overnight, so that the sleep is not disturbed. There are some situations wherein the patients have to take the medications, okay, which are supposed to be given more frequently. So, making it act for a longer period of time, say for example antiasthmatics or anticonvulsants, so you may maintain the effect overnight, so that you may have a good sleep, or your sleep may not be disturbed. Now these are all the advantages, as we have seen, of prolonging the drug action. However, in all the situations, it may not be necessary to make a particular drug to act for a longer period of time. Say for example, if you need a brief therapeutic effect, you want your drug to act for a short period of time. Say for example, you are having a headache. Okay, so you may not require your drug to act for 24 hours in this situation, right? If your headache subsides, that's fine. Okay, so any drug which acts for a short period of time will do in this particular situation. On the contrary, there are certain drugs which have inherent long duration of action. They themselves act for a long period of time. Say for example, omeprazole and digoxin. They have prolonged. They have a very long T half life. They have very long duration of action. So in these situations, you may not have to prolong the drug action further, because they are already long acting drugs. Okay. Now, what are the situations in which prolongation of drug action may be required? So this includes the situation in which the drug has T half life less than or equal to 4 hours. Okay. T half life, it is the time taken to reduce the concentration of the plasma concentration of the drug to half of its original value. So any drug which is having T half life of 4 hours or less than that, so in this situation it is ideal to prolong the drug action. Whereas in such situations in which drug has a T half life of say 12 hours or more than that, it is not advisable. It is rather not required for your drug to act for a longer period of time, because it is already longer acting, right? 12 hours of T half life, it is quite a long period. So in these situations, you may not require your drug to act for a more longer period of time. Okay. Now, let us see what are the different methods for prolonging the drug actions. Okay, so there are 4 main methods by which you can prolong the drug actions. That is, you can you can make your drug act for a longer period of time. Say, first method is by prolonging the absorption from the site of administration. Okay. So you can see at every kinetic level you can prolong the drug action. So at absorption itself, you can delay the absorption of that particular drug. You can delay the release rather. So your drug will be absorbed over a prolonged period of time. Okay. Next method is by increasing the plasma protein binding, as we have seen under binding also. Okay, that it is not available for distribution, metabolism, excretion, and so on. Then next method is by retarding the rate of metabolism, by which it is getting inactivated. So by inhibiting the metabolism, you can increase the duration of action. By retarding the renal excretion, so if you reduce the excretion of that particular drug through kidneys mainly, so in that case also you will make your drug to stay in your body for a longer period of time. Okay, now let us consider all of these one by one. So coming to the first method, that is by prolonging the absorption from the site of administration. Okay, so different routes are considered over here. Coming to the first route, that is oral. Okay, in case of oral route, there are several dosage forms which can be designed. Like you can coat your drug with some material which is resistant. It may not dissolve very quickly, so you can coat your drug particles with either resins, plastic material or some other substances, so that they will release the drug slowly. They will not release the drug at once. Okay, another technique is to use the semi-permeable membranes. This is quite commonly used to control release, to produce a controlled release of a particular drug. Say for example, the diagrammatic representation is given over here. An inert core is present of substance on which actually you place your drug, and it is surrounded by a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so you can see that there are pores over here. So this is semi-permeable in nature, so it will control the release of your drug from here. So in this region 75% of your drug is placed, and in the outer layer 30% of the drug is placed. So when you administer this particular tablet or this particular dosage form, the outer layer will be immediately released. Say within half an hour, outer layer is drug which is present in the outer layer is quickly released. But what is happening to the drug which is present over here? It is slowly released through the pores. So here the release of the drug is controlled, so that it is released over 6 hours, say 5.5 hours period. Okay, so by controlling the release of the drug from your dosage form, you can control the absorption of the drug from that particular site. Okay, now these particular preparations, they prolong the drug action by 4 to 8 hours, not more than that. Why? Because you know that your JIT, it's under constant movement, right? Peristaltic movements are going on. So even if you try to prolong the drug action beyond this, your dosage form will reach the colon by that time. Okay, so once it reaches the colon, there is no use whether you prolong the action further or prolong the release of that particular drug further. There won't be any prolongation of absorption beyond that. Okay, because it has reached the colon. Okay, so also the drugs in whom the release pattern and consequently the blood levels which are attained, this may be more variable as compared to the regular tablet of the same drug. Okay, so there may be alterations in the levels of the plasma concentrations. Okay, the next route is the parenteral route. Now under the routes of administration also we have considered that subcutaneous or intramuscular injections. These can be given in such a way that the action of the drug can be prolonged, or the absorption of the drug can be prolonged. Supposing if you give your drug in insoluble form, like benzathine penicillin or lent insulin, so it is in the insoluble form, so your drug will be released slowly, it will be absorbed slowly. Or if you give your drug in the form of an oily solution, depoprogesterone is the examples. Or if you pellets are implanted, okay, beneath the skin, or certain implants are biodegradable or non-biodegradable. It depends. An implant can be removed later in case of Cialis is what we have considered under the routes of administration also. So here in this particular situations, you can prolong the absorption of the drug. So your drug will get released over a period of time. Maybe for a few days it will last over there. Even sometimes several months to even a few years. The implants may remain there and it will slowly release your drug. Okay, so absorption will be altered over here, or it will be prolonged over here. Or one more method could be inclusion of the vasoconstrictor. Like say for example adrenaline, this constricts the blood vessels. So what will happen? Your blood vessels will be less permeable. So as a result of this, again absorption of the drug can be delayed. So that is, this is an example. Adrenaline is added to local anesthetic to prolong its action. So it will remain over there for a longer period of time. Okay. Then next is the transdermal drug delivery system. As we have seen that transdermal patches are formulated, adhesive patches or strips, or maybe you can incorporate your drug in the ointments and this is applied on the skin, and from here there is a rate controlling membrane, and from here the drug will be released slowly and it will be absorbed also slowly. Example is glyceryl trinitrate. Then next method of alteration or prolongation of the drug action is by increasing the plasma protein binding. Okay, so if you convert the drug into a different form which has high affinity to bind to the plasma proteins, okay, so what will happen? Your drug will remain in the bound form. And what we have seen, the bound form of the drug is not available for distribution, it is not available for metabolism, and also it is not available for the excretion. Okay, so what will happen? Your drug will remain bound with your plasma proteins, but it will be in the equilibrium with the free form. So as the free form is consumed, bound form will be released. Okay, so it acts as a temporary storage. So it will make your drug act for a longer period of time. This we have seen under the implications of plasma protein binding also. Example of drug is quoted over here, sulfadoxine, okay, which has high plasma protein binding. Next method of prolonging the drug action is by retarding the rate of metabolism. Okay, supposing if your drug is getting inactivated by metabolism, it is getting converted into inactive metabolites. Okay, so what will happen if you retard the rate of metabolism, if you slow down the rate of metabolism, what will happen? Your drug will remain in the active form for a longer period of time, it will not get inactivated. So what you can do is slight modification of your drug can be done by by some alterations in the structures without much affecting the biological action. Okay. Say for example addition of ethinyl group to estradiol, it makes the drug act for a longer period of time, okay, because its metabolism gets slowed down. On the contrary, another way by which you can retard the rate of metabolism is by administration of another drug. We have seen under the enzyme inhibition also under metabolism, right? Inhibition of the metabolism. Certain drugs, when they are administered together, one drug can inhibit the metabolism of another drug. Okay, so second drug's metabolism can be decreased. So as a result of this, the plasma concentration of that drug will increase. So its duration of action also will be prolonged. For example, allopurinol, it inhibits the metabolism of 6-mercaptopurine. So since metabolism is inhibited, this 6-mercaptopurine, its action will be prolonged. Even cilastatin, it protects the imipenem from degradation in the kidneys. So this is how you can prolong the drug action by retarding the rate of metabolism. Next method is by retarding the renal excretion. Under tubular secretion, we have seen that active transports are involved in the secretion of your drug in the kidney tubules. So it will throw your drug out of the body. Okay, and since these processes are active in nature, there are transporters which are involved. So if two drugs are competing for the same transporter, obviously there will be competition, and one drug may inhibit the tubular secretion of another drug. Best example which can be quoted over here is probenecid. We have even considered this example over there under renal excretion, tubular secretion. Probenecid, it has high affinity for the transporter which is utilized by either penicillin or ampicillin to get secreted in the kidney tubules. Okay, so since probenecid has high affinity, probenecid will get secreted out and penicillin will remain in your blood circulation for a longer period of time. Okay, so these are all the methods by which you can prolong the drug action. You can make your drug act for a longer period of time. Then the next concept is target drug delivery devices. Okay, so here, as the name implies, you are delivering your drug directly to the target organ or a specific tissue. You are, localizing, or you can even prolong the delivery of the drug at a specific target organ. Okay, so there are few of such situations which are used right now. Liposomes are quite popularly used. So these are unilamellar or bilamellar nanovesicles, okay, which are prepared with the help of this lecithin or some other biodegradable phospholipids. So these liposomes, these are injected intravenously, and once they are in the systemic circulation, they are selectively taken up by the reticuloendothelial cells, specifically in the liver or the spleen, okay, or certain malignant cells. So what you can do is you can incorporate specific types of drugs in these liposomes, so that these are delivered to specific types of cells. Cancer treatments, it can be targeted, okay, or liposomal amphotericin B. This is used in the treatment of Kala-Azar, okay, or some other systemic mycosis, okay, or sometimes these liposomes are tagged with antibody. Okay, so these are targeted towards the release of this drug or entry of this drug in the specific tissues. So here you can target your drug towards a particular organ, or it will be released or it will be taken up in the specific organ. Next is the implants, drug releasing implants. So herein there are specific implants wherein the drug is coated over these implants, and this implant is placed in the target organ, and slowly the drug which is present on this implant, it will be relieved. There will be a prolonged release or prolonged delivery of that drug in that specific target organ. Okay, so you are targeting a particular organ, that is, you are delivering the drug directly to that particular target organ, and also the release is also prolonged in this situation. The best example is progestin impregnated intrauterine contraceptive devices. So the devices like copper T and all, so they can afford the the protection for nearly about 5 years. Okay, so these are the contraceptives. Okay, so they will offer the protection for nearly about 5 years. Okay, or such devices may also be used to treat certain gynecological problems. Okay, another example is stent. A stent which is coated with antithrombotic drug, wherein the blood should not clot. Okay, so wherein already if the blockages are present in the coronary arteries, they are removed. These are thrombos, meaning a clot is formed within, say, an intact blood vessel. So here with this technique of angioplasty, that particular blockage is removed, and over there, to prevent re-stenosis, this particular stent is placed, and it is impregnated with antithrombotic drug, which will prevent further clotting of the blood in that particular region. Okay, so such stents are placed in the coronary arteries to prolong the action and to release the drug at that particular site. Okay, so this is how the drugs can be targeted at certain organs. Okay, then the important questions pertaining to this particular concept, that is the excretion and the kinetics of elimination, is a note may be asked on either the excretion or routes of excretion, sometimes it is asked. Okay, or a note on clearance may be asked, where you can define and calculate the clearances and discuss how it can be altered as the kinetics changes. Then the note on plasma half-life of a drug may be asked. Then therapeutic drug monitoring, which we have seen today, and methods of prolongation of the drug actions can also be asked. This is the reference. Thank you.